34 years ago, two young women vanished on the same night in La Jolla's coastal area, leaving behind only two seashell necklaces and a trail of unanswered questions. The police concluded these were separate disappearances, but strange details and missing evidence plunged the city into unease. The case was quickly closed, files sealed, and the victims' names faded from public memory. Yet years later, a female investigator stumbled upon the old case file and uncovered hidden clues: swapped DNA, a technical notebook with the phrase, "The sea keeps what we give it," and a string of classified U.S. Navy orders. What she was about to do would not only reopen a murder case, but shake a system once thought untouchable. Before diving into this chilling story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit subscribe to catch the next part. On a summer night in 1990, La Jolla's coastline glowed under neon lights and billboards along Prospect Street. Music from Shore's Bar, mixed with the smell of sea salt, beer, and the steady crash of waves against the cliffs. Inside, an advertising company's birthday party was in full swing. Megan Hale, 28, a design assistant, laughed with colleagues one last time before excusing herself to leave early. She wore a small straw hat, carried a beige purse, and had a seashell necklace around her neck, a gift from a friend during a Coronado vacation. Some recalled her at the door, her white dress catching the flickering lights, the seashell glinting under green neon. Up north, Sea Haven Cafe was clearing its last tables. Carla Ramos, 22, a senior at San Diego State, finished her late shift. She took off her apron, folded it neatly, and said goodbye to the manager. When asked if she needed a ride, she replied, "No, someone I know is picking me up." Her voice was confident, routine. The cafe's back lot was quiet, just the hum of the AC and the smell of stale coffee. She stepped outside with a small backpack and a light jacket. No one remembered which car pulled up. No one saw her after that. That night, strong sea winds carried white mist down from Torrey Pines cliffs. Late-night patrons, leaving Shore's Bar, said the parking lot was oddly empty. Megan was last seen unlocking her car, her figure leaning under dim yellow streetlights before vanishing among the row of parked vehicles. Some drivers passing by recalled a man leaning against a railing, staring out at the sea, his face hidden in shadow. At Sea Haven, the night guard said Carla stood waiting by the curb for about 10 minutes before she was gone. A nearby payphone was still warm, its receiver dangling. These small details only surfaced days later. By dawn, Megan's home phone rang unanswered. Carla's roommate assumed she'd stayed at a friend's and didn't report it. By noon, Megan's mother drove along the coast searching for her, finding her daughter's car missing from home and its usual parking spot. Carla's father called the police to ask about filing a report. That afternoon, at San Diego PD's headquarters, two unfamiliar families met at the front desk, each clutching a photo of their daughter. Two reports were placed side by side at the duty desk. As the final lines were typed into the system, Lieutenant David Mercer from San Diego PD's Criminal Investigation Unit walked in. He glanced at the two files, submitted less than 10 minutes apart, both from La Jolla, both dated the 6th of July 1990. Without hesitation, Mercer decided to merge the reports into a single investigation. That morning, he and two young investigators, Mark Rivera and Ellen Shaw, visited Shore's Bar and Sea Haven Cafe to reconstruct the timeline of the disappearances. A city map spread across the table, two red dots connected by a curved line hugging the coast. They started where Megan was last seen. The bar owner confirmed she left before midnight, with no signs of being followed. But a waitress recalled that while Megan waited to pay, a middle-aged man in a green jacket, smelling faintly of machine oil, stood nearby. Probably a Navy-based technician, she said. At Sea Haven, the guard's account was eerily similar. Carla spoke with an older man, military bearing, low gravelly voice, near a light gray pickup truck. Mercer ordered all security footage from the area collected. In grainy ATM footage near Shore's Bar, a man in a green jacket appeared seconds after Megan passed, streetlights reflecting a distinctive stripe on his shoulder, a style typical of Navy technicians' uniforms. Mercer zoomed in, noting navy blue jacket. At Sea Haven, backdoor footage showed a gray pickup idling for a minute before heading toward Del March. The two clips sat side by side. Same truck model, same color, same area. Not a coincidence, Mercer said, his gaze icy. The tech team pulled vehicle records within a 10-mile radius of La Jolla. 46 gray GMC or Ford Rangers, 1,985, 1,989 models. A long list was printed, but only 5 were in the area between 10 and 11:30 p.m. While Rivera worked with the traffic division, Shaw retrieved the victims' call logs. Megan's home phone recorded a brief call at 9:32 p.m. from an unknown number. Carla, before leaving the cafe, used a payphone to call someone. The recording captured only wind and the low rumble of a small truck idling. Mercer sat before the map, tracing witness accounts. Both victims moved along the same coastal road, an hour apart. He noted, *1 perpetrator, 2 targets, same corridor*. That evening, the team returned to recreate the route. The coastal parking lots were nearly empty, just waves and dim yellow lights. Rivera checked active street cameras, finding another clip. A gray pickup crossing Garnet intersection at 11:20 p.m. when Carla went silent. The license plate was blurred, only the last 2 digits clear, 27. Mercer circled them on paper, ordering a check of civilian and military vehicles ending in that sequence. Among the list was a curious name, Thomas Caldwell, a mechanical engineer formerly at Coronado Base, currently on leave due to injury. Cross him off for now. Not enough evidence, Mercer said, but his eyes lingered on Navy Engineering Division. At headquarters, Shaw compiled statements from bar staff, cafe workers, and late-night drivers. One witness saw the green-jacketed man talking to Megan in the parking lot before walking toward the sea. Another recalled Carla speaking to someone by the curb, a pickup store open. The accounts formed a pattern. Same approach, same vehicle, same description. Mercer tapped the timeline board, linking events with red string. The victims' photos were pinned side by side, with his handwritten note in the middle. *same night, same man*. Below, he added, *target knows coastal roads, moves fast, picks lone victims, likely served at or worked near the base. The room fell silent. The AC hummed faintly. Mercer lit a cigarette, staring out the window. La Jolla's sea glowed with distant lights, calm as if nothing had happened. But in his mind, the red strings on the map formed a single line. A man in a navy green jacket, stalking 2 women in one night, never seen again. The official investigation began there. 3 days after the police set up the timeline and swept the coastal area, an urgent call hit the dispatch at 7:42 a.m. A man walking his dog along a trail at Sunset Cliffs Natural Park reported seeing a human-like object below the southern cliffs, where waves crashed against the shore. Mercer and the forensics team arrived 20 minutes later. Sea mist hung thick, dampness coating the rocks, and the smell of salt mixed with faint machine oil in the breeze. As the rescue team rappelled down, a figure lying in wet sand came into view under flashlight beams. Megan Hale's face was nearly obscured by her hair, her left hand pulled back, wrist marked by deep rope burns, fingers clenched as if still grasping something. Mercer stood on the cliff's edge, looking down at the body, then signaled the crime scene photographers to begin. Near the body, forensics found a 2-inch strip of green fabric caught in her dress, dotted with tiny black specks, later identified as technical machine oil. In the sand, something glinted under the light, a broken seashell necklace, its pendant scratched. Mercer crouched, signaling for it to be bagged. His gaze grew heavy. The last detail from the photo, Megan's mother provided 3 days earlier, now lay here, cold and meaningless. The forensics team worked until noon. Rising heat intensified the briny smell. The initial report found no signs of sexual assault. The body was untouched, clothes intact, with only a short drag mark from the cliff edge to the sand, suggesting she was dead before being dumped. Nylon rope marks on her neck and wrists matched technical cord used in mechanical shops. Tiny oil specks clung to the skin's fine hairs near the wounds. Mercer ordered all samples collected and sent to the lab. He knew these details, along with the green fabric, might be the only link to the killer. That afternoon, the body was taken to the San Diego County Coroner's Office. The autopsy, conducted by Dr. Bashan, Margaret Lynn, estimated the time of death between 10:45 and 11:15 p.m. on July 6, roughly an hour after Megan left the bar. Cause: mechanical asphyxiation by a flexible object, likely nylon rope or small cable. No clear defensive bruises suggested she was subdued quickly, possibly from behind. Another detail caught Mercer's eye: a black residue on her left hand, under a microscope revealing carbon-based polymer structure, matching anti-corrosion paint used in naval equipment. Reading the report, Mercer paused at substance similar to naval-grade grease. The match with the green jacket in the footage and the naval engineering tag made the Navy connection clearer. Still, no direct evidence. He sent Rivera back to the scene to scour the waters below for more clues. Late afternoon, Rivera called, "We found a small nylon fragment caught in the rocks, matching the wrist marks." Mercer ordered it sealed. At the office, he pinned crime scene photos to the board. The body lying sideways, tangled hair, seashell necklace, nylon fragment, oil traces. He placed Megan's living photo beside them, handling it as if afraid to tear it. "This is a murder," he said softly. "No doubt left." On the official file, a line was typed. Asterisk. Case. File number SD 90327. The seashell case asterisk. That evening, Mercer and Ellen Shaw visited the Hale family's home. The small Pacific Beach house glowed dimly, Megan's mother sitting motionless by the window, her daughter's photo on the table. When Mercer broke the news of the body's discovery, she didn't cry, only asked, "Did anyone keep her seashell necklace?" He replied, "It was sealed as evidence, to be returned when the case closed." He withheld details about the Navy clues or green fabric not yet public. Driving back, Ellen stared at the distant sea through the car window, red restaurant sign lights reflecting on the dark water. "Do you think he picked them randomly?" she asked. Mercer didn't answer immediately, eyes tracing the light rippling on the waves. "No," he said finally. "He knew them. At least one." The next morning, a preliminary report went to command. The entire scene was photographed, cataloging oil samples, fabric, nylon, and the necklace's position. Initial lab results confirmed the oil on the victim's skin was used only in ship maintenance or military facilities, a high salt resistance type rare in civilian use. Mercer underlined that line in red. "If he's Navy," he said, "this is just the surface." That afternoon, as a restricted area, no entry sign went up at the Sunset Cliffs Trail. Sea winds carried the scent of oil and salt, lingering in the rock crevices. Under the sunset, the spot where Megan was found looked eerily peaceful, as if the sea had swallowed all sound from July 6. Mercer gathered the case file, eyeing the seashell case label on the cover, knowing this was no longer a missing persons case. Someone out there, still free, might be sitting in a house by the sea, reading the evening news, with no one suspecting his hands had killed a woman just 3 days ago. 4 days after Megan Hale's body was found, San Diego PD merged the two missing persons files into one investigation. Mercer hung maps of La Jolla and Del Mar on the wall, red string tracing the victim's final movements. One line ran from Shores Bar to the beachside parking lot, another from Sea Haven Cafe toward Pacific Highway. They intersected at Route 75, a dimly lit stretch with few cameras. Mercer studied the map, eyes narrowing. "Same route, same night, same approach," he said. "We're looking for someone hunting by area, not chance." Ellen Shaw sat at the table, reviewing witness statements. A Shores Bar server confirmed seeing Megan talking to a middle-aged man with graying hair, green jacket, oil-stained hands, and a low voice. Sea Haven's guard recalled Carla speaking with a similar man, military build, by a gray pickup. Descriptions varied only slightly, one taller, broader shoulders, possibly the same person. Mercer ordered a composite sketch drawn from both accounts, creating the first suspect image. Meanwhile, Rivera, the young investigator, reviewed the lists of friends and acquaintances of both victims. One name appeared on both. Daniel Reese, 35, a freelance photographer living in Pacific Beach, who had taken portraits of both Megan and Carla for local tourism campaigns. Mercer frowned at the name. "He's the only clear link between them," he said. Ellen checked the records. Reese had been fined in 1988 for unauthorized photography in a restricted area near the Coronado Naval Base. "Green jacket technician? Coronado Navy?" Ellen muttered. "Think it's connected?" Mercer didn't answer, only signaled Rivera to prepare a summons for questioning. At Reese's small studio, the air was thick with the smell of photo-developing chemicals. Black and white photos hung on the walls, coastlines, boats, shadowy figures under sunset light. Reese greeted them calmly. When Mercer asked about Megan and Carla, he answered promptly, "I knew them both. Megan was a colleague, Carla a student. I helped with her portfolio. Both were cheerful, friendly. I didn't see them that night." Mercer showed the blurry ATM camera image of the green-jacketed figure. "Ever wear a jacket like this?" Reese gave a faint smile. "I shoot outdoors. Half the city owns green jackets." Ellen pressed. "What car do you drive?" "Black Ford Bronco. I can show you the registration." Everything checked out. But when Mercer asked where he was on July 6, Reese replied, "At home, developing film." No witnesses to confirm. As they left the studio, Mercer scanned the cluttered room filled with ocean-themed frames. On a wooden shelf, a photo of Megan smiling caught his eye, with a man's reflection holding a second camera in the background, his face obscured by light glare. He pointed to it. "Who took this?" Reese hesitated. "I set up a tripod, used burst mode, probably my reflection." Mercer said nothing more, only requested old film rolls be sealed for review. That afternoon, the tech team cross-referenced the maps. Overlaying the victims' routes revealed a suspicious overlap. Both Megan and Carla had visited Ocean Charm Shop, a small store selling seashell jewelry in Pacific Beach, where they bought their necklaces. A receipt in Megan's wallet matched the date and bore the same clerk's signature. Mercer underlined a red note. Asterisk connection through object, same item, same source asterisk. Both victims were killed wearing identical necklaces, and one key piece of evidence was the broken seashell necklace found beside Megan's body. The analysis team compiled a comparison chart. Asterisk, asterisk. Time of disappearance, asterisk, asterisk. 90 minutes apart. Asterisk, asterisk. Vehicle, asterisk, asterisk. Possibly a gray pickup truck. Contact location, La Jolla Coast, 2 miles from Coronado Base. Asterisk, asterisk. Shared evidence, asterisk, asterisk. Seashell necklace, technical machine oil, green fabric strip, Ellen added, asterisk. The killer likely worked in a marine technical environment, knows the area, avoids cameras. Asterisk. Mercer circled the word, marine. "He's not just picking random women," he said. "He targets those tied to the coastal image jobs, homes, or hobbies." By day's end, with the analysis complete, Mercer stared at the wall of victim photos and evidence. "We don't have the killer's face," he said, "but we know how he chooses," Rivera asked. "And Daniel Reese?" Mercer paused his pen. "If he's innocent, why photograph both girls in the same setting, ocean, light, necklaces, and say nothing when they went missing?" He ordered, "Put him on the temporary suspect list." As night fell, the investigation room glowed with green desk light. On the large board, between Megan and Carla's photos, Mercer wrote in red, asterisk, the seashell connection asterisk. Below, 3 question marks linked, asterisk ocean, technician, photographer asterisk. Outside the window, La Jolla's waves crashed steadily, reflecting a cold, metallic light, the light of a case growing clearer than ever. 6 months passed since Megan Hale was found beneath Sunset Cliffs, and the case grew cold. No new witnesses, no clear leads. Every avenue circled back to the start. Mercer's task force kept the file open, occasionally reviewing data, but no new evidence tied Megan's case to Carla Ramos's disappearance. Then, on the morning of the 19th of January 1991, a hiker in Del Mar reported to police that he saw part of a human bone, protruding from the ground, in a coastal ravine southeast of Del Mar Canyon. The forensics team was dispatched that day, and Mercer drove to the scene himself. The path to the ravine was narrow, flanked by dry brush and loose rocks, with the smell of damp earth mixing with sea air. As the team set up, they uncovered skeletal remains buried just 30 centimeters deep, the pelvis and arm bones exposed by rainwater. A scrap of beige cotton fabric matched the server uniform Carla wore at Sea Haven Cafe. Mercer stood steps from the scene, his gaze catching a small object near the neck bones, an intact seashell necklace, its surface coated with dark oil stains. He signaled for it to be collected and sealed. The pendant bore a carved C on the back, a detail Carla's mother said she'd etched herself when she bought it. When the first samples reached the lab, technicians noted a striking coincidence. The oil on the seashell matched the chemical profile of the oil found on Megan Hale's skin 6 months earlier. Tests confirmed it was Navy-grade anti-corrosion oil used in marine equipment. Mercer read the analysis, gripping an unlit cigarette. He knew the cases were no longer separate. "Merge the files," he said curtly. "From now on, we call this the Seashell Murders." The team began reconstructing the full sequence. Carla's time of death was estimated 1 day after her disappearance, near the same time as Megan's murder. Both died within hours, 13 miles apart. Forensics confirmed male DNA on Carla's shirt matched an unidentified sample from Megan's case. Mercer sat silently before the timeline board, the two red strings now joined as one. "One killer, 2 victims, same night," he said. The tech team expanded the oil analysis. Dr. Margaret Lynn's report noted, the oil sample contained salt-resistant compounds, 2.3% boron and silicon produced exclusively for the U.S. Navy. 1987 Paint polymer traces matched those used in submarine engine compartments. Mercer underlined 1,987, 1,991. This was no longer a hunch, but a clear sign the killer had access to or worked in naval engineering. He called Coronado Naval Base's personnel office for a list of mechanical engineers who left in 1990, but the military refused. "All records are classified, non-disclosable." The curt response silenced Mercer for a moment. He said softly, "They're protecting someone." That night, he sat in the office, stacking 2 thick case files on the desk. The yellow lamplight fell on the victims' photos, 2 young women, 2 identical necklaces. He recognized the killer's precise pattern, targeting familiar women in public, approaching amiably, striking late at night, using a pickup truck, subduing with technical rope, killing quickly, and using anti-corrosion oil to mask evidence. All were calculated, not impulsive. "This is someone with military discipline," Mercer told Ellen Shaw as she entered. "He knows how to clean a scene. He's no amateur." Ellen opened her notebook, reviewing names of those who worked at Coronado Base early in the case. 3 stood out, 2 active technicians and 1 retired due to hand injury, Thomas Caldwell. Ellen repeated the name. Mercer recalled it from the gray pickup list. "That's him," he said. "Check his vehicle registration, plates, insurance, everything." The next morning, Rivera reported, Caldwell's gray GMC was sold in 1992, records vague, vehicle untraceable. Caldwell now lived in Oceanside, about 20 miles from Del Mar. Military records showed he worked in marine engine maintenance. Mercer ordered old photos of Caldwell shown to witnesses at both locations. The Shores bar server said he was 80% similar. Sea Haven's guard said, very similar, just different hair color. Mercer planned surveillance, but lacked grounds for a search warrant. Meanwhile, the coroner's office finalized the DNA report. Unidentified male blood under Megan's nails and oil on Carla's necklace came from the same man. CODIS wasn't widespread then, but internal comparisons ruled out civilian suspects. Mercer mused. "If he's not in the civilian system," he said, "he's military." On January 25, local papers ran, "Second body, in 1990, La Jolla disappearances found police suspect same killer." Mercer stayed silent, pinning the article to the board. Below the bold headline, he wrote in red, asterisk, 1 killer, 2 shells, military trace asterisk. That evening, Ellen brought the final lab results. The oil on Carla's seashell matched Megan's skin sample exactly, differing only in oxidation from air exposure. No doubt remained the cases were linked by the same material, same DNA, same symbolic evidence. Mercer lit a cigarette, looking out the window. Strong sea winds carried the heavy smell of oil and salt from distant Coronado Harbor. He used oil to mask the scent, to keep the sea from taking evidence, he said softly, but he forgot it's his fingerprint. The Seashell Murders file was officially entered into the system the next morning. On the hard cover, italicized text read, asterisk case number SD90327A divided by B, joint homicide investigation, asterisk. Mercer signed below, his pen strokes firm and final. For the first time in 6 months, he felt he'd touched the killer's shadow, a navy green jacket lurking behind the waves, silently watching from California's coastal mist. The Seashell Murders file was officially opened the next morning. Mercer signed the hard cover, eyes lingering on the italicized Times Joint Homicide Investigation asterisk. In the quiet room, the AC hummed softly, cigarette smoke mingling with sea salt air seeping through the door's crack. He looked up at the San Diego map on the wall. Every arrow pointed to one spot, Naval Base Coronado. No doubt the killer knew this area, lived or worked within it. Mercer set his cigarette in the ashtray, telling Ellen Shaw, "If we want to know who he is, we start with where that oil came from." 2 days later, the technical team delivered the final report. The first line silenced the entire unit. Lubricant sample confirmed as MILPRF 17331 engine oil exclusively used for Navy technical vessels. Mercer read it 3 times, then handed the paper to Ellen. Oil for Navy technical ships. Nowhere else has this. Ellen nodded, whispering, "We're on the right track." That morning, Rivera walked in from the evidence room, carrying a small sealed bag. "Found another item at Carla's scene," he said, placing it on the table. Inside was a small torn metal fragment, faintly engraved with Naval Engineering. Under the light, the lettering matched the standard font on military ID tags. Mercer pieced the fragments together on the desk, staring silently. "He dropped his tag while hiding the body," he said, voice dry. "Might have broken it in a rush to flee." That afternoon, Mercer took the file to the prosecutor's office, requesting access to the Coronado Base's technician roster. The meeting lasted less than 10 minutes. The Navy liaison officer sat across, face expressionless. When Mercer presented the oil sample and tag fragment, the officer replied curtly, "Technical personnel records are classified. Access denied." Mercer suppressed his anger, speaking slowly. "One of your people killed 2 women in one night. We're not after secrets, just who was at Coronado in July 1990. The officer shook his head, voice flat as if reciting orders. "I lack authority to provide that." Back at headquarters, Mercer slammed the file onto the desk. "They're hiding something," he said. "No one reacts like that if they're clean." Ellen opened her notebook, scribbling, "Naval cooperation, denied." The room's air grew heavy. Rivera looked at the victim's photos, asking softly, "If they lock the records, what do we do?" Mercer answered without hesitation, "Find another way. He can't erase every trace." That night, Rivera returned to the evidence vault for a final check. Opening bag #7 from the Del Mar ravine, he found a thin plastic scrap coated in dirt, resembling a tag label. Under UV light, 3 faint letters appeared. Div. Closer inspection revealed the full phrase. Engineering Division. He called Mercer immediately. By morning, they sat in the lab, piecing together the metal and plastic fragments. The complete text emerged. Naval Engineering Div. Mercer exhaled, voice low. "No more doubts. This is a tag from someone in the technical unit." He ordered the oil sample, cross-checked with Coronado's main supply inventory. An anonymous technician agreed to send a reference sample through internal channels. When the results came back, the report was 4 bold words. 100% match Coronado facility. Mercer laid the paper on the desk, giving a silent half-smile. He's not just from the base, he said. He worked there. That afternoon, he presented the documents to his superior. Instead of approval, the chief skimmed the report and folded it shut. This case stays quiet from now on, he said. We don't have enough to accuse a serviceman. Mercer stared directly, asking, You expect them to investigate themselves? The response was a cold glance. State orders. A memo was issued that day, its final line in bold. High likelihood of military involvement. Do not disclose. Mercer sat silently in his dim office, piecing the tag fragments together, eyes fixed on the perfectly aligned text. Under a magnifying glass, tiny cracks ran across the surface, as if snapped during a hurried grip. Someone from the base was at the scene, he said softly. The question is, did he kill for personal reasons, or something else? Ellen entered, placing an unofficial list from a military admin contact on his desk. All Coronado technical personnel, who left or transferred between June and August 1990. Over 20 names, but one stood out: retired due to a workplace accident, broken right arm, the 10th of July 1990, 4 days after the victims vanished. Thomas Caldwell. Mercer looked up, eyes sharp. He's back, he said. This time, no one's covering for him. Outside the window, wind from Coronado Bay blew strong, carrying the metallic scent of machine oil, the same smell Mercer noted at both crime scenes. In the streetlight's reflection on the water, the base's buildings glowed like a silent wall. He lit a cigarette, watching embers fall to the floor, whispering almost inaudibly, If the truth is locked in there, I'll open it myself. On Monday morning, a week after the oil match confirmed its Coronado origin, Mercer received orders from the chief. Halt military investigation expansion, focus on civilian suspects. The command hit like cold water, but he had no choice. On his desk, amid stacks of files, one non-Navy name remained: Daniel Reese, freelance photographer, 35, who had photographed both Megan Hale and Carla Ramos. The name had surfaced early, then been sidelined when naval technical evidence emerged. Now, superiors forced him back to square one. Mercer knew it was futile but needed to prove it with results. At noon, 2 officers knocked on Reese's small Pacific Beach apartment door. He answered. Thin, eyes sunken from sleeplessness, the air thick with photo-developing chemicals. The room was cluttered with cameras, photo paper, and film rolls hanging on strings. Mercer sat on a folding chair opposite, opening his notebook. Mr. Reese, he said slowly, we need to talk about 2 women, Megan Hale and Carla Ramos. You photographed them, correct? Reese nodded. Yes. Megan was a friend through colleagues. She asked me to shoot headshots for her company. Carla, I photographed in April for a Sea Haven Cafe promo project. Mercer studied him. Did you see them after that? Reese shook his head, voice hoarse. No, I only heard they went missing through the news. Ellen Shaw placed a printed Shores bar surveillance photo on the table. In the blurry frame, a tall, thin man in a dark jacket trailed Megan. Recognize yourself? Reese studied it, frowning slightly. Could be me, but I'm not sure. I often shoot there at night. My jacket's black, not green. Mercer tilted his head. Your vehicle? Black Ford Bronco, registered in my name. Rivera scribbled in the corner, eyes fixed. When did you leave Shores Bar? I wasn't there that night. I was home developing film. Mercer paused his pen, asking softly, Anyone confirm that? Reese went quiet for a few seconds. No, I live alone. The next day, Mercer had Reese take a polygraph test. Questions followed in order. Did you meet Megan on July 6? Were you near Sea Haven Cafe that evening? Do you know anyone in the Navy? Results were mixed. The first 2 were inconclusive, the last, likely truthful. The technician reported high stress indicators, but not enough to conclude. Mercer read the printout, seeing only ambiguity. Meanwhile, the press caught wind of the story. A leak about a photographer linked to both victims questioned by police hit the San Diego Tribune's front page, titled, Photographer Linked to La Jolla Murders. Old photos of Reese surfaced online, his black and white ocean shots twisted into psychological evidence of Obsession with water and women. The media frenzy erupted. Shore's bar received hundreds of calls. Locals swarmed Reese's home, throwing papers, snapping photos, seeking interviews. Mercer watched from afar, knowing the reporters were ruining any chance of further investigation. 3 days later, DNA test results from Megan and Carla's cases arrived. The lab confirmed no match with Reese's sample. Mercer read the results to his superior, voice steady. "It's not him. DNA rules him out completely." Instead of approval to pursue other leads, he got a curt reply. "Release him, then close the file. The press needs an answer." Mercer froze. "We haven't found the killer." The response. "The public just needs to know this is under control." That afternoon, Mercer went to Reese's holding cell. The man sat silently, hands on the table, eyes vacant. Mercer uncuffed him, placing a copy of the DNA results before him. "You're free. DNA doesn't match. You're innocent." Reese looked up, a crooked smile forming. "Innocent? They've plastered my face across the papers. No one will hire me now." Mercer stayed quiet, then said softly, "Sometimes, the truth comes after everything's broken." As Reese left the station, reporters swarmed, camera flashes blinding. He lowered his head, walked straight, saying nothing. That evening, Mercer stayed in the office alone. On the wall, Megan and Carla's photos still hung side by side. He removed Reese's photo from the suspect board but didn't store it. In his mind, details connected. Dark jacket, camera shadow, bar and cafe locations, black Bronco, ties to both victims. He's not the killer, Mercer told himself, but he knows something he hasn't said. Ellen entered, placing a coffee on the desk. "The chief wants you to close the file temporarily," she said. "It's officially pending until new evidence." Mercer nodded, eyes on the blinking red fax machine light as it printed a cold line. Asterisk, case SD, 90327, status, pending, asterisk. He sat staring at the naval engineering tag in its sealed bag on the desk. It held the truth no one wanted to touch. Outside, night cloaked the city, ship horns echoing faintly from Coronado. Reese might be innocent, but Mercer knew that when everything seemed to stop, the truly guilty began to feel safe. And in that false calm, the Seashell murders were shelved, waiting for someone bold enough to reopen them. A week after the Seashell murders file was marked pending, Mercer couldn't let go. Despite orders to stop, he visited the evidence vault each morning, a ritual. Room C12, deep in San Diego PD's basement, glowed under fluorescent lights, metal shelves cold. The smell of old paper and machine oil stirred memories he tried to suppress. He opened the inventory log for case SD, 90327, bag hash 4, seashell necklace, bag hash 7 nylon fragment, bag hash 9 oil sample, bag hash 9E, green fabric, bag Hassan 2 metal tag fragment engraved, naval engineering. When the vault clerk opened the sealed cabinet, Mercer noticed immediately, only 11 bags remained. Bag Hassan 2 was gone. He demanded the evidence loan log. The clerk pulled up the digital record, typed briefly, then fell silent. The screen displayed, asterisk loan record number A, 4537. Borrowed the 2nd of February 2090, 1 requesting unit. Navy Evidence Custody. Signed. Lieutenant Commander, R.H. Monroe, asterisk. Mercer read the name twice, face stone cold. "Who authorized this?" he asked. The clerk replied softly, "No one, sir. They brought a command, stamped order. I followed interagency protocol." Mercer eyed the young clerk, restraining himself. "Where's that order now?" "They took the original. I only have the copy." He held the photocopied sheet, ink faint, stamp askew, reading, asterisk. "For Departmental Review, Naval Intelligence, Cooperation asterisk." No police signature, just a handwritten urgent, and Monroe's name. "Monroe," Mercer repeated. "Is he on Coronado's personnel list?" Ellen Shaw, upon hearing, checked internal data, RHT. Monroe, officer in charge of military evidence storage, had contacted the police during the initial investigation. His record ended in April 1991, after transferring to Naval Intelligence and vanished from the system. Mercer filed an internal report to command, requesting evidence retrieval, but the response came 3 days later. Curt, Navy has taken custody for review. No further action needed. The cold reply stunned him. He folded the paper, set it down, and told Ellen, "They just erased the last link to Coronado." She asked, "What about the tag photocopies?" Mercer shook his head. "Photos were corrupted. We only have a blurry print, illegible." That evening, he returned to the office. The wall still held the map with Megan and Carla's photos, but a gap marked where the tag photo once hung. The case felt gutted, its core piece removed. All red strings leading to Naval Engineering Division now hit a dead end. "A hand intervened," he said softly. Ellen looked at him asking, "What now?" Mercer lit a cigarette, smoke curling under the desk lamp. "If they took it, they're scared." The next day, he visited the Southwest Naval Command office, hoping to meet Monroe. The gate guard checked the visitor list, then shook his head. "No Monroe here, sir. You might have the wrong unit." Mercer showed the order copy. The officer glanced at it, briefly unsettled, then said quickly, "This isn't in our records. I can't help." Before Mercer could press, he turned away. Leaving the base, Mercer noticed 2 uniformed men in the parking lot watching until he passed the gate. Late that night, an internal call came from his superior. "Mercer, stop. This case is now interagency. It's out of our hands." The voice was steel, cold. "We're archiving the Seashell murders. Investigation closed." Mercer asked, "Conclusion? Insufficient evidence. No suspect identified. Case closed." The line cut, leaving a long beep. In the office's dim light, Mercer sat alone before the board, red strings now disjointed. He pulled the cigarette from his lips, watching smoke drift thinly. 8 months of work, green fabric, oil samples, seashell necklaces, technical tag, dissolved as if they never existed. The case was shut by an order, not by truth. The next morning, an internal memo was issued. Asterisk case SD 90327. Investigation suspended. Evidence Hasson 2, under federal review asterisk. Mercer signed the handover, but at the bottom, he scrawled, asterisk, evidence removed without authority, suspected internal interference, asterisk. When Ellen arrived, he was staring out the window, dawn light glinting off Coronado, pale and cold. "You don't think it's over?" she asked. Mercer replied, voice rough. "This case never ended. It's just buried, like those 2 girls." She said nothing, watching him pack the old file into a wooden box labeled, "Seashell, hold." That afternoon, in the archive room, among hundreds of dusty case files, Mercer's wooden box was tucked into the deepest corner. Outside, the sea roared, sunset lights spilling over Del Mar's cliffs, and somewhere offshore, Coronado's ships glided silently, as if 2 women had never died in one night, and a military tag had never been pulled from the case to sink the truth to the ocean floor. 27 years passed since Mercer was forced to shelve the Seashell murders file. The case dwindled to a minor entry in San Diego PD's archives, nestled among thousands of cold case folders, each buried under thick dust. No one mentioned it. No one asked why evidence Hasson 2 vanished. The names Megan Hale and Carla Ramos survived only in old news clippings, stored deep in the city library's microfilm vaults. But in early 2018, as the department restructured its cold case homicide unit, a new name emerged: Detective Lauren Vega, 34 years old, a forensic biology graduate. She was known for her meticulousness and habit of poring over every line in cases thought long dead. On her first day, Vega was tasked with sorting over 200 unsolved cases from the 1,970 seconds to 1,990 seconds. Flipping through yellowed, heavy files, she paused at one titled in italics, asterisk SD 90327, the Seashell murders asterisk. The brief description read, 2 victims, connection unresolved, investigation suspended 1,000, 991. She reread the final line in Lieutenant David Mercer's report, who died in 2004. Evidence removed without authority. Suspected internal interference. The faded handwritten note was still legible, enough to convince Vega this wasn't simple. Why would a case with 2 victims and clear DNA evidence be closed for insufficient evidence, she wondered. That afternoon, Vega descended to the basement evidence vault. The system was digitized, but old case boxes remained untouched. In a dusty corner, among shelves labeled Times Archive 1000, 995 asterisk, she found a wooden box with a faded label, Seashell, hold. Inside, most items had deteriorated, but 2 sealed bags bore intact 1,991 seals marked Seashell Hashone and Seashell Hash2. Yellowed labels, scrawled handwriting, asterisk Hashone, Hale, Hash2, Ramos asterisk. Tilting the bags under the light, she saw 2 thin hairs and a dark green fabric strip coated with oil. No notes indicated they'd been tested with modern DNA methods. Vega brought the evidence to the forensics lab. The veteran technician eyed the labels, shaking his head. Mercer's time? These samples were never processed with autosomal DNA or genealogy. Back then, it was manual, error-prone. She replied, "Things are different now. We have long-read sequencing. We can trace relatives." The technician looked at her, smiling. "You know this case was blocked, right?" Vega nodded slightly. "That's why I need to redo it." 2 weeks later, she sent all Seashell Hashone, Hash2 evidence to the state's Advanced Forensics Lab in Sacramento, with a memo, re-examination request for degraded biological evidence, cold case SD 90327. While awaiting results, Vega read every old file. Crime scene reports, Dr. Margaret Lynn's findings, Mercer's handwritten notes. All converged on one point. The metal tag fragment marked Naval Engineering. She jotted in her notebook, evidence Hashone 2, missing since 1990. 1. Signed by Lieutenant Commander Air Ha-Monru. One evening, scouring the digital archive, Vega found an unlabeled folder in a 1993 backup drive. Inside were 12 black and white scanned images, flawed copies of original evidence. One, though blurry, was recognizable, a broken military tag. Below, a handwritten note, photocopy, Mercer personal file. She exhaled, as if catching a breath from the past. Sacramento's results arrived after 6 weeks. The report stated, DNA sample insufficient for full profile, but confirms male gender. Genetic markers 100% match between both victims. Notably, new technology detected polymer compounds on the green fabric, characteristic of Navy technical uniforms from the late 1980s. Vega read each line, a chill running down her spine. Nearly 30 years on, the evidence hadn't faded. The next morning, she presented the findings to her chief. He skimmed them, asking, "You're reopening this? It caused trouble with the Navy before." Vega replied, voice firm, "I don't care about trouble. 2 women died, and no one's been held accountable. If they want it buried, I'll dig it up." The chief studied her, then nodded slightly. "Your call, but if you do it, keep it quiet." That afternoon, Vega returned to her desk. On her screen, she typed the first line of a new report, asterisk cold case reopened, file SD 90327, Seashell murders, asterisk. In the notes, she added, evidence retested with modern forensic tech. Male DNA confirmed matching both victims. Investigation focus. Navy technician, Coronado Base. Outside the window, afternoon sunlight hit the sea, reflecting a faint silver sheen like an oil slick. Vega closed her eyes, thinking of Mercer, who wrote the case's final line nearly 3 decades ago. This case never ended. And now, thanks to 2 dusty evidence bags, it was truly coming back to life. The Sacramento lab report was just the start. A week after the Seashell murders were officially reopened, Lauren Vega received a call from the Special Materials Analysis Lab in Los Angeles, where she'd sent the green fabric from Seashell Hashone, Hash2. The technician's voice was hoarse. "We have results, detective. You'll want to see this in person." 3 hours later, Vega was at the research facility. A cold room with white-tiled walls and a sharp solvent smell. On a table, under an electron microscope, the fabric's image was magnified hundreds of times. The technician pointed at the screen. Double-twist fiber structure, coated with fire-resistant polymer. It's aramid, a Kevlar variant, issued only to Navy technicians from 1988 to 1992. He looked up, adding, "No commercial version. Civilians couldn't buy it. Manufacturer was Crown Defense Materials, exclusive Navy contract." Vega crossed her arms, staying calm, but excitement and dread surged within. "You're sure?" "Positive. We cross-checked with Naval Engineering Division's technical uniform samples. Same fabric, color, production era." She leaned over the printed report. The final line in bold. "Material origin confirmed. U.S. Navy, technical uniform batch, number 440, 2 amperes. Vega took a deep breath. 30 years ago, Mercer hit a wall at Navy Engineering. Now, that tattered fabric, after nearly 3 decades, still pointed to the same place. The next day, Vega sent an official request to the Southwest Naval Command for access to the 1,990 Coronado Base Technical and Maintenance Division personnel list. She cited interagency cooperation and evidence. Newly confirmed material exclusive to military, suggesting suspect as current or former technical staff. 2 days later, a faxed reply arrived. 4 cold lines. Request denied. Information classified under Defense Personnel Act. No further inquiry recommended. Below, a slanted Navy seal, and Commander J. Wilcox's signature. Vega stared at the paper, feeling history repeat. She recalled Mercer's 1991 report where "Naval Cooperation Denied" stood stark. She grabbed a pen, writing in the margin. 27 years later, same wall. Undeterred, she contacted a retired source, Ronald Hale, a former Coronado engine maintenance technician. When Vega mentioned aramid, he gave a dry laugh over the phone. "I know that stuff. Fire-resistant woven fabric, issued to mechanics. In 1990, only a small group got it, about 800 people. If you have the batch number, I can tell you which unit." Vega read 442 amperes from the report. He paused, then said slowly, "That batch went to Maintenance Dock 4, Division C. I worked at Dock 2, but I remember Dock 4's chief then was Engineer Thomas Caldwell." The name stopped Vega cold. She opened Mercer's 1991 file. His handwritten note lingered. "Thomas Caldwell, left due to hand injury, July 1990. A red circle around it, as if Mercer meant to return but never could. That night, Vega sat alone in her office, spreading evidence photos across the desk. 2 seashell necklaces, green fabric, oil samples, all tied to the Navy, to Coronado. She opened Mercer's file on her computer, rereading his last line. "If they took it, they're scared." For the first time, she felt she was carrying on the work of a man who died for this justice. The next morning, she went to the chief's office with her official report. He skimmed the pages, frowning. "Lauren, you're going too far. I don't want this poking the Navy. You know the trouble Mercer faced." Vega replied, voice calm but firm. "We're not poking anyone. We're finding who killed 2 women. I won't stop because someone calls it classified." He stayed silent, then pushed the file back. "I won't approve your request, but I won't stop you. Be careful." She understood. Proceed, but quietly. Over the next week, Vega manually compiled a personnel list from public reports, technical journals, and veteran records. She gathered about 300 names from the Naval Engineering Division, between 1988 and 1992. Only one had lived in Oceanside, less than 20 miles from Carla's body, Thomas Caldwell. She printed a map, marking his old residence, Megan's discovery site, Carla's, and Coronado Base. A perfect triangle. The pieces fit, as if time hadn't blurred the trail, only sharpened it. Late that night, Vega got a call from the Los Angeles lab. The technician spoke low. We found another detail. The aramid fiber has traces of silver epoxy paint, identified as used on small class technical vessels, Seawolf class, docked at Coronado 1989, 1991. She closed her eyes, feeling the pieces connect. Can you send the official analysis? I'll send it to you directly, not through the office. Hanging up, Vega looked out the window, where Coronado's lights reflected on the water, just as Mercer saw nearly 30 years ago. She knew the path to truth was still sealed with a classified stamp, but this time, she had what Mercer didn't: DNA, materials, and technology that could turn a single fiber into a map to hunt a killer hiding in the shadows for 3 decades. She swore, no matter the cost, to pull him from that refuge, even if it meant facing the entire U.S. Navy. The next morning, as faint sunlight hit Coronado Sea, Detective Lauren Vega sat alone in San Diego PD's DNA archive room. After the Los Angeles report confirmed the aramid fiber's Navy origin, she decided to dive into the only remaining data from the 1991 file, the DNA samples from both scenes. If they'd been retested, she still wanted to see the original records to understand why the case was halted. She asked the vault clerk to open cold storage unit #4, where 90 seconds sealed DNA vials were kept. Stainless steel cabinets gleamed, mist rising from the glass. Vega opened the accompanying paper file, tracing each evidence code, number DN. A 34 hours, Hale, number DNA 47, R, Ramos *. But checking the handwritten seals on the vials, she saw something wrong. Vial number 34 hours wasn't labeled Hale, but bore a new label, in different ink, reading #34R. The old label beneath was half-peeled, yellowed adhesive visible. Using tweezers, she lifted the old paper beneath. A faint line emerged. Hale, female, 28. Vega's heart pounded. She photographed it, then sampled the new label's ink for chemical scanning. Results appeared in seconds. The ink was industrial grade, Fleet Systems ink, sold only to federal units. She opened the original evidence log. A note chilled her. DNA number 34 hours relabeled under Navy evidence custody. 2/1991. Signed, Lieutenant Commander R.H. Monroe. Vega sat silently, her fingers brushing the old file. The words, Navy evidence custody, echoing Mercer's final report. Evidence removed without authority. Signed, R.H. Monroe. Same signature. Same person. Same year. It meant not only was the naval engineering tag removed from the case, but the original DNA sample from the victim had been relabeled and directly tampered with. She drafted an internal memo writing, discovered DNA vial number 34 hours, M. Hale, relabeled as #34, R. C. Ramos. Ink used as military grade. Evidence borrower, Lieutenant Commander R. H. Monroe. Matches, missing evidence number, 12 inches, 1991. Suspected manipulation to erase traces, linked to Navy personnel. She sent the report to the chief, but he only glanced at it and sighed softly. Lauren, what you've found will stir up a lot. No one in the department wants to reopen this wound. Vega replied, voice calm but cold. This wound was never stitched. They just covered it in dust. That evening, Vega sat alone in her office. On her screen, she opened 2 digitized files, the 1991 DNA report and the 2018 analysis. The male DNA was confirmed in both cases, but no name, no match, as the original sample had been tampered with. Without the original data, it would all slip back into silence. She wrote in her work log, evidence tampered by military insider. Traditional forensic route blocked. Need alternate path. Looking up at Mercer's photo on the archive room wall, a black and white shot from 1989, a gray-haired man standing by stacks of old files, she suddenly understood why he never breached this wall. Mercer was locked out by classified orders. Now, 30 years later, she was locked out by the hand that had swapped DNA labels. That night, Vega opened her computer, accessing the National Genealogical Database, the public DNA system modern investigators used to trace distant relatives of suspects. She knew if the real person was dead or records erased, their genetic line still lingered somewhere in the bloodline. She emailed the Sacramento lab, "Please provide the partial DNA sequence extracted from seashell hashone, #2 evidence. I want to submit it to the genealogical system for distant relative tracing. Internal interference makes official channels unviable." 2 days later, the lead analyst responded, "DNA sample is degraded but sufficient for partial Y chromosome query. Note: results may only identify second or third-degree relatives." Vega smiled. "That's enough," she whispered. She uploaded the data to the system, the screen flashing. "Processing sample SD90327. Estimated match time, 48 hours. She stood, looking out the window. San Diego's night stretched wide, Coronado base lights reflecting on the sea like hundreds of shimmering oil streaks. A mix of anticipation and defiance stirred in her chest. Someone 30 years ago relabeled vials, removed evidence, snapped a technical tag, thinking it would bury all traces. But they hadn't counted on time-changing technology advancing, a single gene strand able to indict a system that stayed silent. Before leaving the office, she opened Mercer's file again, adding to the final page in firm handwriting, 2018, DNA tampering confirmed. Same signature, R.H. Monroe, no longer a cold case, beginning genealogical trace. Outside, a ship's horn sounded from Coronado Bay, its low echo lingering. Vega paused by the window, staring at the dark water, whispering as if to her long-gone predecessor. "Captain Mercer, you were right. They buried it. But I'll dig it up with the blood of the man who wrote Navy Evidence Custody." 2 days after Vega submitted the partial DNA to the genealogical database, her computer screen lit up with a green alert. One potential family match found. Confidence level, 75%. Her heart raced. 30 years later, the nameless DNA from the Seashell murders was finally speaking. She opened the report, reading slowly. The Y chromosome sample matched 75% to the Caldwell family, specifically a lineage living in Oceanside, California, a coastal area less than 30 miles from Coronado. A subnote read, "Likely male relative, first or second cousin match, Thomas or Richard Caldwell line." The name Caldwell sent a chill down her spine. She vividly recalled Mercer's file, where he'd circled the name in red. Thomas Caldwell, mechanical engineer, left due to hand injury, July 1990. The same time, the victims vanished. She reopened the personnel list she'd compiled from public sources. Line 27 stood clear. Asterisk Caldwell, Thomas E., Chief Engineer, Maintenance Dock, 4, Naval Base Coronado. Status: retired. July 1991, medical injury. Asterisk. Vega leaned toward the window. Across the bay, Coronado's lit buildings glowed through the night fog. Now she was certain. The killer was never far, he was right here, in the same city, living normally for 30 years. She immediately contacted the National Veterans Data Center, citing genealogical investigation. 2 hours later, they sent a public file on Thomas Edwin Caldwell, born 1951, current address in Oceanside, CA. The record detailed, Service Branch, U.S. Navy divided by rank, Chief Engineer divided by division, Naval Engineering, Dock 4 divided by injury report, right hand fracture, July 10, 1990. That accident occurred just 4 days after the murders of Megan Hale and Carla Ramos. Vega opened the attached incident report, a blurry scanned copy, typed in an old font. It stated Caldwell fell from a metal staircase at Dock 4 during engine oil system inspection. But zooming in, a note at the page's bottom corner froze her. Absence recorded night of July 6, 1990, unverified. Meaning, on the night of the murders, Caldwell was absent from his shift, with no one confirming his whereabouts. Vega whispered, "Absent from shift. Then 4 days later, an accident. Perfect cover for a real injury. She connected the dots. MIL, PRF, 17331 oil. Aramid fiber batch 442 amperes. Naval engineering tag. And now Caldwell, the man directly tied to those materials. Every arrow on her investigation board pointed to one person. That afternoon, she presented her findings to the chief. His face grew stern. "Lauren, do you have physical evidence?" "Not yet. Just genealogical DNA and personnel records." "That's still a theory. Caldwell's a veteran. Touching him is poking a hornet's nest." Vega replied firmly. "If he's innocent, I'll prove it. If guilty, 30 years late is still justice." Without waiting for approval, she and a technician reviewed 1,990 crime scene scans from Megan Hale's case. In one photo of wet sand, Vega noticed a faint shoe print with triangular sole ridges unique to Mark IV military technical boots, issued exclusively to Coronado's maintenance division. Comparing it to a 1,990 boot ad, the match was perfect. She took all this evidence to Ronald Hale, the retired technician who identified batch 442 amperes. Hearing Caldwell, he frowned. "Thomas? I remember him. Quiet, skilled, but once reprimanded for leaving his post without notice. He was protected, close to Doc 4's officer. A week later, heard he slipped, broke his hand, then vanished." Vega asked, "Ever hear of him having mental issues?" Ronald sighed. "Caldwell lived alone. Wife left in 1988. Rumors said he drank heavily, kept ocean trinkets, shells, coral. People thought he was odd but harmless. Who'd have guessed?" That evening, Vega returned to the office, restringing red threads on the old investigation board. In the center, she wrote in black marker, "Thomas E. Caldwell, engineer, Naval Base Coronado, 1,980, 1,991, and drew a thread to Megan and Carla's photos. Below, she added, "Oceanside, CA, current residence." But she wasn't at ease. The genealogical DNA only showed familial ties, not proof Caldwell left the crime scene traces. She needed a direct sample fresh DNA from him. And if Mercer's suspicions were right, someone in the system might still be shielding Caldwell. The next day, Vega drove to Oceanside, to the address in the file. It was a small, gray-blue house at the end of a street near the coast. The garage door was ajar, revealing rows of mechanical tools, the air thick with oil and metal. She didn't knock, watching from afar as a silver-haired man wiped his hands with a ragged cloth, movement slow and precise. Light through the door caught his right wrist, a long, old scar. Vega whispered, "The 1,990 accident." She returned to her car, noting, "Visual confirmation, suspect Caldwell, Thomas E. Right-hand scar matches injury record. Need covert DNA sample." As night fell, Vega glanced in her rearview mirror, seeing Coronado's distant lights flicker on the water, echoing crime scene photos from 3 decades ago. She thought of Mercer, the 2 young victims buried under waves, and the classified stamps blocking every door. But now, a coffee cup Caldwell tossed in the trash, a napkin with a lip smudge, could let modern DNA tech unmask a killer protected by an entire system. Before leaving Oceanside, Vega texted her chief. Genealogical results confirm 75% Caldwell family match, Oceanside. Target, Thomas E. Caldwell, Navy engineer, retired 1,991. Request covert surveillance. The 6th of July 1990, confirmed absent from shift. Then she turned off her phone, staring at the pitch-black sea. The waves crashed steadily, as if whispering back what Mercer wrote before his death. The truth doesn't sink, it just waits for someone to dive deep enough. 3 days after submitting the 75% Caldwell genealogical match report, Detective Lauren Vega was granted permission for non-invasive covert surveillance of Thomas E. Caldwell in Oceanside. The order allowed observation only, no contact, no home sampling, but Vega knew that to close 30 years of silence, she needed direct DNA. On Thursday morning, she and technical agent Brian Holt parked in an alley across from Caldwell's house. Through binoculars, they saw the 6-7-year-old leave his garage, carrying a thermos, wearing a gray jacket and dark blue work pants typical of an old technician. He lived as if time hadn't passed. Every morning, Caldwell drove his old silver-gray Ford F-150 pickup from home at 7:10, along the coast, stopping at Seaside Brew Cafe near Oceanside Pier. He sat at the same table, read the paper, drank 2 espressos, and returned home by 8:15. No friends, no family, no visitors. On the third day of surveillance, Vega acted. She waited for Caldwell to leave the cafe, then signaled Holt to enter. On the table, his paper cup held a third of its coffee, a dried stain at the rim. Holt quietly bagged it. They left unnoticed. That night, the sample was rushed to the state forensics lab, marked SD90327D. 4 days later, Vega got a call from the lead analyst. "Lauren, sit down," he said. "The coffee cup DNA is a 100% match to the male sample from Megan Hale's case. Not just same family, same person." Vega didn't respond immediately. The air around her thickened. 30 years of barriers, orders, denials, all crumbling in one genetic sequence. "You're sure?" she asked softly. "Positive, triple-checked, perfect match." That evening, Vega sat before the old investigation board, pinning Caldwell's photo at the center, drawing red threads to Megan Hale and Carla Ramos's pictures. Below, she wrote in black marker, "DNA confirmed, 1 man, 2 murders." She looked up, through the window, where Coronado's lights reflected on the water, just like the 1,990 crime scene photos. "Mercer," she whispered. "We've got him." The next morning, Vega presented the results to the district prosecutor. In the small, dimly lit meeting room, the DNA report and Caldwell's current photo lay on the table. The prosecutor read, then nodded slightly. "If it were anyone else, I'd demand a retest, but this is third-generation tech. It can't be wrong." He signed a request for expanded surveillance and prepared a warrant application. To avoid leaks, all actions were kept off public systems, with Vega as the sole direct overseer of Caldwell. The following week, Vega spent nearly all her time in Oceanside. Caldwell lived alone, his routine as precise as a clock: mornings at the cafe, afternoons in the garage fixing cars, evenings listening to an old radio broadcasting Navy news. She watched through a telephoto lens, noting every move. He showed no anxiety, no change in habits, but his eyes held something indefinable, an absolute calm, as if he knew no one would dare touch him. On the 8th day, Vega noticed Caldwell linger unusually long at the pier, where local boats were docked. He stared at the water for nearly 5 minutes, then tossed something small that glinted in the sunlight into the sea. Vega only caught a few blurry frames. She didn't know what it was, but instinct told her he was erasing traces. That evening, she and Holt followed him home. Caldwell emerged from the garage, carrying a trash bag to the public bin on the street corner. When he turned away, Holt swiftly swapped the bag for a new one and took the original to the lab. Inside, they found leather gloves, a rag with oil stains, and a few singed old photos. On one, Vega saw 2 women by the sea, half their faces visible, but the seashell necklaces were unmistakable. She whispered, "He kept their photos for 30 years. On the 14th of July 2018, the lab results came back. The rag's oil matched MILPRF17331, and a faint fingerprint aligned with Caldwell's. Vega immediately drafted a request for expanded surveillance from the California State Court, citing primary suspect identified in 1990 double homicide, 100% DNA match, evidence, destruction behavior. The order was signed that day, allowing 24/7 monitoring and a tracking device on Caldwell's vehicle. A week later, Vega met with a small task force. On the screen, she projected surveillance images. Caldwell at the shore, tossing an object, leaving the cafe, listening to old Navy news on the radio. "He's not hiding," she said. "He lives like nothing happened, knowing the system once protected him." Holt asked, "Does he know he's being watched?" Vega shook her head slightly. "I'm not sure. But there's something in how he looks at the sea, not fear, but nostalgia. Maybe that's where he killed them. That evening, she wrote in her log, Thomas E. Caldwell, DNA confirmed match to 1,990 double homicide, resides in Oceanside. Habits, isolated, quiet, frequents beach early mornings. Displays calm, no defensive reactions. Suggests confidence of being forgotten. Expanded surveillance order in effect. Goal, monitor behavior, and collect further physical evidence. She closed the log, looking out the glass window. Outside, the sea churned, Coronado base lights glinting on the water. In that light, she saw a faint figure in an old green jacket, standing amid the waves, motionless. For the first time in 3 decades, that figure was no longer just a name in a file. He was real, breathing, with a face and DNA the sea couldn't wash clean. 3 weeks after the expanded surveillance order, Detective Lauren Vega received an unexpected report from the state forensics lab. While reviewing all old DNA samples for the seashell murders to prepare for prosecution, the lab found a slight discrepancy between the 2 male DNA samples from Megan Hales and Carla Ramos's scenes. The match was only 99.73%, not the initially reported 100%. Technically, it still confirmed the same genetic line, but the analyst called Vega that night. Lauren, this kind of discrepancy usually only occurs when samples come from direct blood relatives, father and son. She sat still, eyes locked on the report, a chill running down her spine. If Megan's sample fully matched Caldwell, but Carla's was slightly off, it meant the case might not involve just one killer. The next morning, Vega arrived early, opening the old genealogical data board. She checked the Caldwell family tree in the system. A small branch appeared under David Finn, born 1969, noted as adopted son of Thomas E. Caldwell. The Biocotter Service, U.S. Navy, assigned to Coronado Base, 1,980, 1,990. She read it 3 times to be sure. David Finn Caldwell's adopted son served at Coronado in the exact year of the murders. Vega dug into older files, checking the discharged personnel database. Finn left the Navy in 1992. His record blank afterward, no address, no workplace. Only note. Last known address, San Pedro, CA. She contacted the Navy Personnel Office. The clerk replied after a brief search. Finn? Yes. Record archived. Voluntary discharge. March 1992. No criminal history. No disciplinary actions. Vega pressed. Any confirmed ties to engineer Thomas Caldwell? The voice slowed. Yes. Legal adoption papers, 1984. Caldwell adopted Finn at 15, after his biological mother's death. Hanging up, Vega sat silently. She recalled Caldwell's eerily calm eyes those mornings by the sea. He wasn't alone, she said softly. He had someone with him. In that afternoon's internal briefing, Vega presented to the task force. On the screen, she displayed the 2 DNA sequences, Megan's and Carla's, linked by a genetic chart. This small difference, she explained, isn't a lab error. It indicates close blood relation. In short, Megan's case carries Caldwell's DNA. Carla's carries DNA 99.7% similar, likely his son. An investigator asked, "You think they both acted?" Vega nodded. Same night, 2 victims, 2 locations. Caldwell had experience. Finn was young, controllable. Caldwell likely led, or Finn acted on his orders. Ellen Shaw, now the team's forensic advisor, mused, "If true, we have a parallel pattern. Mentor and apprentice, father and son. 2 murders in one night, to complete a ritual Caldwell believed in." The room fell silent. Vega looked at the old photo of the 2 seashell necklaces side by side. "One for each," she said. "Maybe that's how they marked them." That night, Vega and Brian Holt drove to San Pedro to find Finn. After hours of searching, they found David Finn in the tax registry, current address. A small mechanic shop by Long Beach Port. Arriving, the shop was locked, a faint light glowing inside. Through a door crack, they saw a man about 49, short hair, wiping oily hands, movements crisp like a former technician. Vega watched for minutes, then whispered, "Same build as Caldwell." They didn't approach, quietly collecting fingerprints from the door and a paper cup near the trash. The DNA was rushed to the lab. 2 days later, results confirmed. The cup's DNA matched 99.7% to Carla Ramos's case and 50% to Caldwell, his adopted father. No doubt remained: 2 killers, father and adopted son. Vega brought the results to the prosecutor. He read them, nodding heavily. "Now we have both." She requested expanded surveillance on Finn, as they might still be in contact. The team covertly placed a tracker under Caldwell's pickup. 3 days later, it showed his truck stopped at Long Beach for over 2 hours. Reviewing port surveillance, the footage was clear. Caldwell entered Finn's shop. They spoke briefly. No hugs, no handshakes, just staring. Caldwell left first. Finn stayed, smoking, eyes following. A cold, wordless moment. "Father and son," Vega said softly, watching the tape. 30 years, and they've kept silent, like a pact. Holt asked. "What now?" She replied, "Maintain surveillance. They think no one knows. We'll let them expose themselves." In her court report, Vega wrote, "DNA results indicate 2 male samples from the same genetic line, father-son relation, based on Navy personnel records, identified as Thomas E. Caldwell, adoptive father, and David Finn, adopted son. Both served at Naval Base Coronado in 1990, coinciding with the murders. Request expanded surveillance on both subjects." At the end, she added a handwritten note. "No longer a lone suspect. This is a tandem, 2 generations of the same crime." Late that night, Vega sat in her car on the coastal road, looking south, where Oceanside's lights blended with Long Beach's distant port. She felt the heavy stillness of 2 men, carrying one secret. Waves lapped softly, whispering faintly, and she knew the 1,990 wind hadn't faded. It had passed from father to son, bound by a gene, a vow, and 2 lives buried beneath the sea. On the morning of the 3rd of September 2018, nearly 30 years after the seashell murders began, Detective Lauren Vega held the order she'd awaited for 2 years. Arrest warrants for Thomas E. Caldwell and David Finn, first-degree murder, signed at 5:12 by the San Diego District Prosecutor. Below, in bold, probable cause established via DNA evidence, 100% and 99.7% genetic match. Vega closed the file, taking a deep breath. It's time. 6 a.m. The SWAT team assembled at the end of Oceanside BLVD, where Caldwell ran a small garage fixing fishermen's vehicles. The air was thick with fog and oil. Vega, in the command vehicle, watched live feed from helmet cams. Inside, Caldwell was wiping tools, a radio playing Old Navy news, a broadcaster praising the glory of technical sailors. "Execute," Vega ordered. The steel garage door was breached with a hydraulic ram, white smoke billowing. "San Diego PD, stay where you are." Caldwell flinched, turning, eyes startled for a moment, then eerily calm. 2 SWAT members pinned him to the concrete floor. No resistance, no questions. He only said slowly, "I knew this day would come." As Vega read his Miranda rights, Caldwell's gaze lingered on the police logo, reflected on the squad car's glass. He smiled faintly, then turned, saying, "You won't find him." The words stopped Vega, but she kept her voice steady. "David Finn is wanted. We'll find him." Caldwell didn't reply, staring at the concrete, where an oil stain formed a circular pool. The team searched the garage immediately. In a locked metal drawer, they found an old nylon technical rope, abrasion-resistant, matching the ligature marks on Megan Hale's neck. Beside it was a short-bladed knife, handle engraved, Doc 4, 1989, and a thick leather, bound album labeled, Summer 1990. Vega opened it. Dozens of photos of young women on California beaches, La Jolla, Del Mar, San Clemente. On the final page, Two photos stood out. Megan Hale at a party, Carla Ramos by the cafe. Both wore seashell necklaces. Vega gripped the album, a shiver running down her spine. As Caldwell was escorted to the squad car, Vega stood before him, asking, "Why keep all this?" He shrugged, voice casual, as if discussing the weather. "To remember what I offered the sea." The words chilled her briefly. Meanwhile, Long Beach forces surrounded David Finn's mechanic shop, but the door was locked. Finn was gone. Security footage showed him leaving at dawn, carrying a backpack and a small handgun. Vega issued a federal manhunt, coordinating with the FBI and Highway Patrol. 2 days later, on September 5 evening, a gas station clerk on I-15 near Riverside reported a middle-aged man with a bandaged hand fueling up, fleeing when he saw a patrol car across the street. The license plate matched Finn's vehicle. A blockade was set up immediately. 20 minutes later, at Temecula Overpass, Finn's car was surrounded. He braked hard, ran toward the railing, but was subdued within minutes. Handcuffed, Finn shouted, "I didn't kill anyone, I just cleaned the scene." Vega arrived that night. Under flashing red lights, she saw the man, head bowed, sweat and road dust mixing, eyes red and wet. "You cleaned the scene?" she asked. Finn looked up, meeting her gaze for seconds, then said softly, "He told me to help. Just once." The next morning, both father and son were brought to San Diego PD headquarters. In the interrogation room, Caldwell remained utterly silent, only smiling, as he heard Finn's statement. Vega watched through the one-way mirror. When the investigator read Finn's claim that, "My father made me hold the second woman down," Caldwell spoke just once. "He doesn't know anything. It was all me." Vega entered the room, placing a photo of the two seashell necklaces before him, asking, "How long have you kept these?" Caldwell looked at the image, his eyes softening, then said slowly, 30 years. I kept them to remember. When things were still quiet. They shouldn't have been together that night. I only meant to teach him how to make things quiet, but the sea took both." He gave a faint laugh, voice hoarse. "Now the sea's talking back." In her summary report, Vega wrote, the 3rd of September 2018, Thomas E. Caldwell arrested at Oceanside BLVD garage. Evidence: nylon rope, Doc Fira technical knife, Sumeritusan Neohundrenicio album. The 5th of September 2018, David Finn arrested on I-15, Riverside. Initial conclusion. 2 suspects, adoptive father-son, both served at Naval Base Coronado in 1990. DNA evidence. Caldwell, Megan Hale scene. Finn, Carla Ramos scene. That evening, back in her office, Vega played Caldwell's interrogation recording. His voice came through slow, steady like sea breeze. "I thought time would erase it, but DNA doesn't. You found it because the sea wanted it." Vega sat in the dark, listening to the tape, then quietly closed her notebook. On the final page, she wrote, 2 generations, 1 crime. The sea held them for 30 years, now it's given them back. Outside the window, waves crashed against La Jolla's cliffs, echoing like distant calls of souls they thought forgotten. But now, the city would know those names, Thomas Caldwell and David Finn, 2 generations of the same nightmare. 2 days after the manhunt, San Diego PD's holding center was thick with tension. 2 interrogation rooms stood side by side, separated by a 2-way mirror. On one side, Thomas E. Caldwell, 67, retired Navy engineer, calm face, silver hair, steady gaze. On the other, David Finn, 49, adopted son, eyes weary, hands trembling slightly, lips cracked dry. Detective Lauren Vega moved between the rooms all night. She knew a conviction needed a cohesive confession. But these 2, father and son, from the moment they were cuffed, told entirely opposing stories. In the first interrogation, Caldwell sat upright, voice even as if reciting a resume. "I didn't kill anyone," he said, eyes unblinking. "I just cleaned up." Finn messed it up. He got scared, ran. and I had to go back and fix it. Vega looked at him, asking slowly, "Then why is your DNA on Megan Hale?" Caldwell smiled, shrugging slightly. "I told you. I cleaned up. She was still warm. I couldn't let him get caught. I wiped things down, covered it, took her to the beach. By morning, the sea took her." Vega opened the evidence photo file. Nylon rope, technical knife, photo album. "You kept all this for 30 years just to clean up?" Caldwell went silent for a long moment, then said softly, "When you see the sea every day, you'll understand. Not everyone deserves a grave in the ground." In the next room, Finn told a different story, head slumped on the table, voice shaking. "He made me do it. I was 21, didn't know anything. He said it was just a scare, show them not to mess with Navy men. But when it happened, I didn't know what to do." Vega asked, "That night, were you at Breckenridge, La Jolla?" Finn nodded. "I was in the truck. He told me to drive the woman to a quiet spot. When I came back, she wasn't breathing." Vega flipped the report. "You're talking about Megan Hale?" Finn shook his head, tears falling. "No, her name was Carla." Two overlapping, contradictory confessions. Caldwell claimed he cleaned up Megan. Finn admitted to driving Carla, both denying the act of killing. Vega sat in the observation room, listening to both recordings, her mind spinning. Neither was fully lying, but neither was fully truthful. She returned to the forensic file. The state lab's final report confirmed. DNA on Megan Hale's fingernails matched Caldwell perfectly. DNA on Carla Ramos's scarf matched Finn at 99.7%. On the knife from the garage, Caldwell's fingerprints. In Finn's truck, a search found an aramid fiber, matching the one from Carla's scene. The science was clear. Caldwell killed Megan. Finn killed Carla. Vega printed two crime scene photos, placing them side by side, writing in red. Two victims, two killers, same night. Every piece fit perfectly except for a motive. In the second interrogation, she changed tactics. With Caldwell, she didn't ask who killed, but why. He looked up, eyes glinting oddly. "Do you know what the sea teaches?" "What?" "That everything weak gets swept away. I've seen so many lost, like boats without anchors." I taught Finn silence is strength. But those two girls looked at him with pity. He couldn't take it. Vega leaned in. "So you killed them to teach him about silence?" Caldwell gave a faint laugh. "I taught him how to erase traces, but he learned too fast." In Finn's room, Vega cross-checked. "Your father said you couldn't handle how they looked at you," she said. Finn slammed the table, sobbing. "No, I just followed his orders." He said, "She has to pay for making you weak." When I realized, it was too late. Vega stopped the recorder, looking into his eyes. "You know what he just said? That you killed out of anger, and he only cleaned up." Finn shook his head, tears streaming. "He's lying. He always does. I wasn't the first he controlled." Vega left the room, standing in the dark hallway, hearing the wind whistle through a door crack. Two versions, two opposing truths, but one commonality. On the 6th of July 1990, both were there. She returned to the evidence room, retrieving the summer 1990 album. At the end, between Megan and Carla's photos, was a blank space, a torn-out mark. Under UV light, she saw faint rectangular glue residue. A paper had been there, removed. She recalled Caldwell's words, "I just cleaned up. Finn messed it up." And Finn's, "He told me to drive her, then clean the truck." Vega checked the old scene report. MILPRF17331 oil only at Megan's scene, not Carla's. Meaning, Caldwell handled Megan in a technical area, while Finn acted elsewhere Del Mar Canyon. Two separate acts, same plan, same night. She wrote in the internal report, * Megan Hale, death by nylon rope strangulation. Caldwell DNA, * Carla Ramos, death by mechanical asphyxiation. Finn DNA, *. No signs of sexual assault. *. Scene traces and death times align. Asterisk. Asterisk inference. Two killers acted simultaneously, coordinated, non-sexual motive, control, and symbolic intent. Asterisk. That night, Vega faced Caldwell one last time. He sat still, hands clasped, face expressionless. She placed the photos of Megan and Carla before him. You said you cleaned up. Why was aramid fiber only at Carla's scene, not Megan's? Caldwell glanced briefly, then said softly, because the boy was still in uniform when he did it. Vega pressed. And you? He closed his eyes, whispering. I taught him how to clean things up. But it turns out, he cleaned me. As Vega stepped out, the room's air felt heavy. Two killers, two versions of the same crime, each blaming the other, but the truth was etched in their DNA. In her report to the prosecutor the next morning, she concluded. Asterisk, Thomas Caldwell. Mastermind and killer, Megan Hale. Asterisk. Asterisk, David Finn. Direct accomplice, Carla Ramos. Asterisk. Asterisk. Two opposing confessions, but evidence aligns. Asterisk. Asterisk. Two generations, same inherited guilt. Asterisk. Leaving the station, Vega stood silently, looking toward Coronado Bay. Morning fog cloaked the sea, waves crashing as they did 30 years ago. In the wind, she imagined two voices intertwining, one deep, one trembling, opposing, yet merging into a single line she'd never forget. I just cleaned up. Father made me do it. 3 days after Vega submitted the opposing confessions report to the district prosecutor, the forensic unit continued reviewing evidence from Thomas E. Caldwell's garage. Lifting a floor panel under the workbench, housing old tools and welding gear, a technician found a leather-bound notebook wedged between steel plates. Its cover, singed and oil-stained, bore faint embossed text. Asterisk U.S. Naval Engineering Logbook. Asterisk. Not listed in the inventory, it was sealed and sent to the investigation office. The next morning, Vega was in the evidence room. The technician, gloved, placed the notebook on the table and opened it. Inside were neat technical notes in military blue ink, maintenance logs, pressure readings, pipe checks, but interspersed were lines unrelated to procedure. At the middle page, amid Dock 4 engine line data, Vega stopped at a scrawled note along the left margin. The sea keeps what we give it. The simple, chilling phrase felt like a creed. Below, in darker ink, were more lines. The 6th of July 1990. Routine patrol complete. 2 entered. 1 screamed. Sea was calm. Vega's eyes locked on the date, the 6th of July 1990, the night the victims vanished. Her throat went dry. This wasn't metaphor, it was a handwritten record tied to the date and event. Vega signaled the technician to photograph everything, then requested ink analysis. After 48 hours, the lab confirmed. The ink was Parker Quink Blue, produced for Navy internal use, 1,988. 1,991. Paper oxidation indicated the writing dated to July 1,990, not fabricated later. The analysis sat before Vega. Undeniable proof. Caldwell documented his crime in his technical logbook. She returned to the interrogation room. Caldwell sat as before, eyes calm. Vega placed the notebook on the table, sliding it toward him. Know what this is? He glanced, raising an eyebrow. My logbook. You found it? Yes. And this line, do you remember it? She read slowly. The sea keeps what we give it. Caldwell stayed silent for a long moment, then smiled. I told you. The sea keeps secrets better than people. Vega flipped to the 6th of July 1990 page, pointing to the text. 2 women went missing that night. You wrote, 2 entered. 1 screamed. What's that mean? He closed his eyes, voice low. It means the sea took them. 1 fought, 1 stayed quiet. The sea only keeps the silent ones, detective. Vega held his gaze, seeing a flicker of warped pride as if he saw himself as a guardian of the ocean's laws. She asked, and routine patrol complete? Is that a technical note, or how you described murder? Caldwell gave a dry laugh. I fixed ships. I just logged what was done. Every job needs a clean finish. After the interrogation, Vega sat alone with the notebook. Each line mapped a ritualistic killer's mind. The sea wasn't just his dumping ground, it was part of his language, a recipient for his offerings. In later pages, she found more notes. Dock clean before dawn, and next tide erases. Each tied to tidal cycles, matching the high tide in the 6th of July, 1990 weather report. When Vega presented the findings to the prosecutor, he skimmed a few lines and exclaimed, "This is a confession in ink." She nodded. Not spoken, but physical evidence. Written on the exact date. Same ink, same technical log. The official report was updated. Item Gamma 43, Caldwell's Naval Logbook. Asterisk. Content. Personal notes consistent with murder timeline. The 6th of July 1990. Asterisk. Asterisk. Ink dating confirms origin. 1990. Asterisk. Asterisk. Phrase. The sea keeps what we give it. Indicates symbolic confession. Asterisk. That afternoon, Vega and the forensic team returned to the garage for a final search. In a drawer, they found a nearly empty Parker Quink blue ink bottle, matching the lab's analysis, engraved with naval property. Holding it, Vega felt she was touching the exact moment in 1990 when Caldwell logged his crime in silence, believing no one would ever find it. She brought the notebook back to the office, placing it beside Megan and Carla's photos. As the desk lamp shone, the words, "The sea keeps what we give it," glowed blue, like the water outside. She whispered, "But the sea doesn't keep forever, Caldwell." That night, Vega received the final comparison report. The handwriting in the notebook perfectly matched Caldwell's signature from his 1990 Navy personnel file. Undeniable. She noted in her log, "Found the mind of the killer, not just his DNA. The ocean was his altar, his logbook the scripture." The next morning, Vega entered the interrogation room for the last time. She placed the notebook on the table, open to the July 6 entry. "You said you only cleaned up. But this isn't the writing of an innocent man." Caldwell looked down, his gaze fading, voice hoarse. "You think I killed them out of hate? No. They broke the silence I kept my whole life. The sea is silent, so am I. That night, their screams stirred it. I had to restore the quiet." Vega stood, closing the notebook. "No, you're just rewriting history to escape guilt." She left the room, leaving Caldwell with his head bowed, whispering the same line he wrote 30 years ago. "The sea keeps what we give it." In her end-of-day report, Vega concluded, Caldwell's technical notebook is the key evidence, matching the timeline, materials, and content of the disappearance night. The note, "The sea keeps what we give it," is a confession in ink and the final link tying the sea's silence to human crime. Offshore, waves crashed against La Jolla's cliffs, their low rumble like the ocean's sigh this time, no longer keeping anyone's secrets. A week after Caldwell's notebook was recognized as direct evidence, Lauren Vega thought the Seashell murders case might finally close. But justice, as she soon learned, was never just about catching the culprits. On the afternoon of the 22nd of September 2018, the FBI's Los Angeles office called her urgently. The voice was low and brief. "Detective Vega, while reviewing federal archives, we found a document tied to the Caldwell case, dated 1991. It's not in San Diego PD's system. You should see it in person." The next morning, Vega was in the basement of the Federal Archives Center in Pasadena. Among thousands of dusty file boxes, a technician pulled out a thin, lead-sealed folder labeled Navy SID divided by internal, Coronado Case Review divided by 1991. A warning in the top right corner read, Asterisk, classified. Do not release without authorization. Asterisk. When the seal was broken, Vega opened the pages. Midway through, she found an internal memo titled Immunity Agreement, T.E. Caldwell. Below the bold heading was a typed paragraph. By order of Naval Intelligence Command, Thomas E. Caldwell, Chief Engineer. Doc 4, is hereby granted conditional immunity from criminal prosecution in connection with the civilian investigation of the 6th of July 1990, in exchange for cooperation on classified operations. Below, a handwritten signature, LT, Commander, Erhay Monroe. The name cut like an old knife through time. Vega remembered Monroe was the one who borrowed evidence and swapped DNA labels in 1991. The next page was a Navy internal investigation report, marked, Closed, Lack of Evidence. At the end, a crossed-out line, Investigating Officer, Lieutenant Paul Keaton. Missing since March 1992. Vega frowned. Missing? The technician confirmed. No record of Keaton's discharge or death. He vanished from the system. No reason. No note. Vega carefully photographed each page, anger simmering within. If this memo was true, for 30 years, Caldwell was shielded from prosecution by the very agency that employed him, and the only person who could have objected, Officer Keaton, disappeared without a trace. Back in San Diego, Vega presented the copies to the district prosecutor. He read them, face paling. My God, this is an internal immunity order. The Navy knew but chose to bury it. Vega replied coldly. And they succeeded for 3 decades. The news leaked faster than she expected. An investigative reporter from the Los Angeles Times received a copy from an anonymous source. Within 48 hours, the headline hit the front page. Navy granted immunity to murder suspect in 1991. Files hidden for 27 years. Below was a photo of Caldwell being escorted, with a subheading, The Sea Keeps What We Give It. The nation was stunned. TV channels ran nonstop coverage, decrying one of the most serious internal cover-ups in post-war military history. The Department of Defense issued a brief statement. We will conduct a full review of the matter. But hours later, the Navy's legal office sent a request to the FBI to retrieve all copies of the document for national security reasons. Vega, hearing this, said softly, National security or fear? On September 25, she was summoned to an emergency meeting at San Diego City Hall with FBI, Justice Department, and Navy representatives. The room was cold, the air tense. When asked to speak, Vega stood, voice firm. We have physical evidence, DNA, confessions, and a handwritten log. But this document shows that in 1991, a senior officer halted the investigation and signed an immunity order. The officer in charge, Paul Keaton, disappeared. This isn't just a double murder. It's a systematic cover-up. The Navy side stayed silent. Finally, a man in a navy blue uniform stood, saying briefly, Caldwell was part of a classified technical project, strategically vital. At the time, national priority was secrecy, not civilian investigation. Vega looked straight at him, voice cold. Secrecy by protecting a killer? He didn't respond. The meeting ended in heavy silence. That evening, national news exploded. CNN ran a special. FBI confirms 1,990. One naval memo immunized murder suspect. The memo's lines were read nationwide. Public outrage spread across social media. Former Coronado engineers and sailors sent letters about unreported disappearances from the same period. Under public pressure, the Navy's Deputy Secretary held a press conference in Washington, stating, the U.S. government will re-examine all Coronado Naval Base technical personnel records from 1,980, 1,992, and open an independent investigation into Officer Paul Keaton's disappearance. A reporter asked, will that include reviewing the responsibility of the signer, R.H. Monroe? The deputy paused, then answered curtly, all involved parties will be reviewed. As the broadcast aired, Vega sat in her office, the screen's blue light reflecting on her face. Beside her was Caldwell's technical notebook, open to the line, the sea keeps what we give it. She said softly, not this time, the sea's giving it all back. That night, an email from the FBI arrived in her internal inbox. Coronado Technical Staff Review. Initial audit found 14 cases of personnel termination, labeled unjustified absence between 1,000 989, 1,991. Potential pattern, connected to Caldwell's division. Further investigation authorized. Vega reread the number 14. A cold premonition rose within her. The seashell murders might be just the surface. Below lay a chain of crimes shielded by classified stamps. She opened her notebook, writing the day's final entry. 1,991. They granted immunity. 2018. They're forced to revisit. Justice doesn't die. It's only sealed temporarily. Offshore, wind from Coronado Bay whistled, carrying salt and the sound of waves. For the first time in 3 decades, Caldwell's name wasn't whispered in silent Navy memorials, it appeared in congressional hearings, proof that even the deepest sea couldn't hide a truth written in blood and blue ink. In October 2024, 6 years after the Seashell murders case was reopened, the San Diego Superior Court opened the trial. The State of California versus Thomas E. Caldwell and David Finn. Held in a high-security courtroom, it was surrounded by police and media from early morning. Major outlets, CNN, Los Angeles Times, NBC, The Guardian called it the trial of 3 decades of silence. In the courtroom, the front row was reserved for the victims' families, the Hales and Rameses, who had waited nearly half their lives to hear the killers' names read aloud. Detective Lauren Vega, lead investigator, sat in the third witness row, her gaze fixed on the bench where the 2 defendants Saturday. Thomas E. Caldwell, 73, white-haired, maintained his calm demeanor. His orange jumpsuit was neat, hands clasped. Beside him was David Finn, 55, gaunt, eyes sunken, hands trembling slightly. They didn't look at each other. Between father and adopted son was the cold distance of 3 decades of guilt. Chief Prosecutor Ellen Porter opened with a statement that silenced the room. 34 years ago, 2 innocent women were killed and dumped in the sea. Their killers were protected by the very system sworn to defend the nation. Today, justice is no longer optional, it is a duty. Behind her, a large screen displayed a magnified line from Caldwell's technical log, the blue ink vivid. The sea keeps what we give it. Porter pointed to it, saying, and for 34 years, the sea kept that secret until today. In the evidence presentation, the prosecution laid out 100% DNA match to Caldwell at Megan Hale's scene, 99.7% DNA match to Finn at Carla Ramos's scene, the technical notebook written on the disappearance date, nylon rope, Doc 4 knife, summer 1990 album, and the 1991 immunity memo signed by Navy officer R.H. Monroe. When the memo appeared on screen, the courtroom murmured. Half the trial judged a crime, the other half judged a system that covered it up. The defense argued Caldwell had impaired moral judgment from post-war psychological disorder, and Finn was a controlled victim. The prosecution countered sharply. A man lucid enough to log tides, hide bodies in maintenance routines, and keep a diary cannot claim impaired judgment. On the 6th day, Vega's witness testimony began. She stood at the stand, voice steady, recounting the investigation, from the unopened 2018 evidence bags, to the aramid fiber, to the tampered Navy evidence custody ink label, to finding Caldwell via genealogical DNA. Each detail was paired with crime scene photos and videos. When she quoted Caldwell's first interrogation, "The sea keeps secrets better than people," the courtroom fell silent. The defense cross-examined. Detective Vega, do you think reopening this case to tarnish the Navy's reputation was a political act? Vega replied curtly, no. I reopened it because 2 women died, and their killers weren't named. Her answer drew applause, though the judge banged the gavel for order. On the 10th day, Finn took the stand. After months in custody, he was drained. When the prosecutor asked, "Are you ready to tell the truth?" Finn bowed his head, voice choked. I stayed silent for 34 years. My father said silence was strength, but that silence killed me every day. He confessed everything. How Caldwell planned to punish Megan for disrespecting Navy men. How he dragged Carla in to teach his son control. He detailed it all from the nylon rope to Sunset Cliff's tears falling on the table. I held the camera. He told me to capture their fear. Then he strangled the first woman. I couldn't save anyone. The second I followed orders. I just wanted him to stop. Caldwell sat still, eyes closed, lips curling faintly as if hearing an old song. When the judge asked if he wished to rebut, he opened his eyes, scanned the room, voice low. I won't rebut. I was a Navy engineer. I did what I believed was right. Remove chaos. The sea needs silence, and I helped it. Porter stepped forward, staring at him. And those two women? Were they chaos too? Caldwell replied softly. They were the wind. I just silenced the wind. Vega sought out Ronald Hale, the retired technician who helped identify the aramid fiber batch. He looked at the photo, sighing, Monroe, huh? I remember him. No one touched equipment without his say. He ran Dock 4. Caldwell was just chief engineer. In 1990, there were rumors they worked on an off-the-books project. They called it Deep Current. Vega asked, Do you know what the project was? Ronald shook his head. No one knew. But after Megan's case, Caldwell was suddenly protected, and Monroe vanished from the map. To this day, I believe he's not dead. That night, Vega reopened old files, searching the military database for Deep Current. Nothing. But when she adjusted the filter to Classified Technical Projects 1980, 1991, a file appeared. Classified, Naval Substructure, Maintenance divided by Baja Division. The location subnote, Baja California, Mexico. Baja, where Monroe disappeared. She felt the pieces connecting. Caldwell was granted immunity to stay silent about Deep Current. Monroe, the overseer, vanished when the investigation began. And the two women, Megan and Carla, may have seen or heard something at the bar that night. The next day, Vega requested an FBI interagency investigation. But before she could send it, another email from an anonymous address arrived. Just 2 lines. Commander, still alive. Search the sea. 50 miles south of Coronado. She held her breath. The timing matched a Mexican Border Patrol radar report of an old technical shipwreck near San Felipe, exactly 50 miles south of Coronado. The ship bore the designation NCD-4, matching Monroe's unit. Vega joined a federal naval task force for the salvage operation. Beneath the dark sea, the rusted ship's technical cabin was intact. Inside a corroded safe, they found a faded ID card engraved, R.H. Monroe, Naval Engineering Command. Beside it was a small notebook, mostly water-damaged, but a few pages were legible. On the last page, in shaky handwriting, a nearly faded line. If they ever find this, know that we were not alone. Dock 4 was never about maintenance. We tested something alive. The words stunned the team. Vega stood frozen, the world tilting. Something alive. What did it mean? Biotech? A military experiment? Another victim? No one could answer. Back in San Diego, Vega submitted the report to the FBI and Department of Defense. Both agencies immediately classified the findings confidential, barring public release. She understood. The Seashell murders case was closed, but the truth behind it was buried again. That night, Vega drove alone to La Jolla Beach, where it all began. Waves crashed against the cliffs, white foam dissolving in the wind. She sat on the sand, opened her phone, and reviewed the 1,990 bars photo with Monroe's reflection. Zooming into the corner, behind Monroe was a table where neon light glinted off 2 seashell necklaces. Megan and Carla sat there, smiling, unaware they were captured in their final frame. She closed the phone, pulling from her pocket 2 replica seashell necklaces, recreations the forensics team gave her when the case closed. Moonlight caught them, glinting like the sea's pulse. Sea wind blew, carrying salt and a long howling call. Vega whispered, almost to herself, the sea kept secrets for 30 years, and it still hasn't told them all. She tossed the necklaces into the water. They shimmered, then sank. In that moment, Vega knew the case was only the tip of an iceberg. Caldwell, Finn, Monroe, all pawns in a deeper network where people, power, and secrets merged, like an endless current. Leaving the beach, she glanced back. Moonlight on the water formed 2 intertwined streaks, mirroring the seashell necklaces that vanished. She knew she might never uncover the full truth, but she had pulled its first piece from the depths. In her duty log, she wrote the final entry. Case closed, truth still submerged, the ocean remembers. She closed the notebook, hearing waves hit the rocks, their echo like the breath of a past that refused to die, waiting to tell the rest. The Seashell Murders story reminds us that justice in America can be delayed but must never be abandoned, and the responsibility to improve the system lies with each individual. Specific details, like the Navy-exclusive aramid fiber, MIL, PR, F1733, 1 oil stains, the chilling logbook phrase, "The sea keeps what we give it," or the misused Navy evidence custody label to swap DNA samples, reveal a truth. Without Detective Lauren Vega's persistence from retesting old samples, using genetic genealogy to match DNA from a discarded seaside brew coffee cup, to piecing together the Shores Bar reflection photo and unearthing the 1991 immunity memo, the two-generation crime would have escaped. Practical lessons for American life today. 1. Transparency and record-keeping are justice's lifeline. Families and friends should save texts, locations, receipts, photos, small evidence crumbs that can solve cases years later, like the seashell necklace receipt and bar camera did here. 2. Don't let the glow of authority dull vigilance. Respect service members but support independent oversight. When signs of abuse appear, like evidence, borrowed without basis, report via ombudsman channels, local representatives, or FOIA. 3. Technology can be an ally. Voluntarily register for family DNA kits, understand privacy rights, and advocate for state budgets to clear DNA divided by cold case backlogs. 4. Community safety starts small. Go to bars divided by cafes with a buddy system. Share travel plans. Use ride-share services instead of walking alone to dark parking lots like Megan. Venues should train staff to spot stalking behavior, as with Carla. 5. Speak up courageously from investigative reporters to the final anonymous email, because sometimes a restored photo or a single tip is the piece that lets a jury say guilty on all counts. The sea kept secrets for 30 years, but human persistence broke the silence. Thank you for following the Seashell Murders journey, where justice was pulled from the ocean's depths after 30 years buried in silence. If you believe truth is always worth seeking, hit subscribe and join us in the next video, where we continue exploring secrets time tried to hide.